This is Pauline Jennings. Welcome to Musician Talk. With hard work, a lot of woodshedding, and by being a terrific human being, my guest today, Casey Wasner, has met and exceeded every opportunity he's been given. And today, he is playing drums in the big auditoriums and touring the world with blues legend Keb Mo. Casey is also a reputable sound engineer, evidenced by the fact that he won a Grammy for his work on the record Taj Mo, a collaboration with Taj Mahal and Keb Mo. But that's not all. Casey is a soulful vocalist and an exciting and creative songwriter, has a self-titled CD and another one in the works. Casey grew up in Northfield and will be home visiting for a big music fest at the Wasner Barn on Saturday, June 29th, called Wazaroo. He graciously agreed to a Zoom interview before his trip home. It's time to get the inside scoop. It's time to talk with Casey Wasner. Welcome, Casey, to Musician Talk. I'm so excited to have you on.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
This was an opportune time to have you on because not only do you have a gig at the Guild coming up, you also have a big music celebration at the Wasner Farm coming up on June 29th, and we'll talk more about that later in the show. But I want to start out with your musical journey and just take us from when you first started playing or singing, and what instrument you started with, and then just kind of take us through your journey up to when you moved to Tennessee.
Okay.
All right.
Well, yeah, I grew up in, graduated high school from Northfield, grew up there the whole time. So out there on the farm where Wazaroo's happening.
Yeah.
But there was music in the family and, guitars sitting around and piano and, Dad and Lori and all the other Pete and everybody. It was just a part of our upbringing. And there was some drums sitting in the corner one day and was curious about that. And Dad pulled those down off the shelf and I just kind of started messing around with that. I'm real passionate about music at that point and coming up to graduating high school and not sure what I'm going to do. So I was thinking about going to Berklee College of Music. My dad and my Uncle Pete, who will be at that Arts Guild gig and Wazaroo, they went to Berklee. So I was like, let me see what that's all about, and had everything put together, and I called my uncle for a recommendation, and he couldn't recommend it.
No.
Yeah, so he's like, well, I can't recommend that at all. I was like, oh, okay.
Wait. Was he doing a recommendation for the school or for you?
For me to go to school,
Right, exactly. And he's like, no.
And he's like, why don't you? It was a good option. He wasn't saying don't go, but he said, come down here to Nashville.
Yeah.
And, hang out with me for a little bit and, I'll teach you how to read a chart and everything like that. And then, you always have the option to go to school.
Right.
You're 18 years old, go to school when you're 19, go back when you're 20 or whatever it is.
Exactly.
So it's, things you don't realize when you're that age. You just got all the time in the world to do what you need to do. And I'm glad I did that. And, went down there, just kind of submersed myself into what was going on and met a lot of people. And in that first year, I was just in love with what I was doing. And I started songwriting. I went down there to play drums. So that's when I kind of started playing. I'd learned to play some things on the guitar and piano, but I didn't know what was going on really. But it wasn't until I got down there and kind of, in a private setting to where I was kind of opening up a little bit about singing and messing around with that, which I never did up in Northfield for whatever reason. I don't know. And that kind of took over. I played drums in and out of bands, cover bands and stuff like that. And I was building houses, I was working, just doing it all at the same time. My dad asked my Uncle Pete, he was like, how's the kid doing, And Pete was like, well, he gets up before me and he goes to bed after me, so it's like at that time I could pull that off. I was getting up at 5 a.m, go swing a hammer and then going and playing cover shows in Nashville till 1, 2 a.m. and sleeping for 4 hours. It was, I mean, for some reason I could handle that. I don't know. I can't stay up past 9:30 now. without feeling terrible the next day. So anyway, I'm down here and I start writing. I link up with a good buddy of mine, Todd Otwell, and we start co-writing. It was fun to have a partner in crime there to just validate what I was trying to do, and he was a big supporter in that. And I just loved songwriting so much. And
Why? What do you think it is about that you love?
I think it was because as a drummer, I was always a fan of songs, playing songs. And there was a certain kind of song that I grew up with that I liked playing to. It's like, I wasn't the drummer that was kind of searching out all the drummers that have all the chops in the world and you want to, do all the things. I was the guy that was listening to the lyrics and the guitar
Ah,
and the subliminal thing that the drums were doing, which was very simple, kind of thing. And I mean, that's really all I do still. It's, whatever happens in the first couple of measures, that's kind of where I stay. So,
steady and solid.
so yeah, exactly. So, just to kind of serve the song. So,
Right.
so I started writing songs that I liked, that I wanted to play drums to, and make me feel good. So that's where the songwriting started coming from. And when I moved to Nashville, that set in place pretty deeply. And I ended up making my first album, which is the only one available out there, which took forever. And I have a whole bunch of songs, at this point. So
Sure.
I was like, well, I'm just going to make a record, put a record out. And I had sang a few times here and there, and people are like, wow, you need to do that. You should do
Yeah.
that. And then, everybody's putting out a record or whatever. And I knew how to do the studio thing and record myself. So I recorded everything basically in my apartment or my house, or, went to somebody else's house with a microphone and just kind of built it up, or I'd play bass and then have somebody replace it that could do it better or something.
Wow.
And
And this was constructing your self-titled album.
yeah. And then after that, everything changed. As an example, everybody heard it and then they said, how'd you do this? And then, I said, well, I just, I did it at the studio or whatever, or at my place on my laptop, whatever it is. And then it turned into me helping everybody make their records. And,
I see. So it was that
yeah,
by saying it changed everything, people saw how good you were, or heard how good you were on the engineering side.
well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if it was how good I was, but they understood that I could help them.
Got
Uh,
it. Casey, let's take a step back and we'll get back to
mhm,
this. So I'm really surprised, and I did not know this, that you did not start singing until you're well, an adult, basically, and
mhm,
really didn't pick up the guitar till then either. That
yeah,
you pretty much were on drums until then. So, how old were you when you found those drums in the corner and started playing?
probably about 8 or 9 or something
Wow.
like that. And mom and dad, they allowed me to play those drums in the basement. Like, I don't know why they would let me do that, but it's so loud down there. But they said you got to be done by 9, and that was a rule. That
That's
was
a
the rule for my whole time growing up in that house. And I was obsessed. I was into sports and music, and I'd go down there and play all the time.
Hey, first of all,
Support
yes,
that.
thank you, Craig and Linda, for allowing me to
Yeah.
do that. I remember a story that Steve's dad said after, because he would practice in their basement, and he would say, he came up one day and Ken said, Stephen, do you have to practice anything quietly? You have to
Yeah.
practice being quiet, playing quietly.
Yeah.
When you're that age, that's not the fun stuff, right? So
Yeah.
at this point in time, you're just going down to the basement and drumming. And so how were you learning how to do that? I mean, you can't just go sit down and start playing along with songs proficiently.
Well, Dad had an interesting teaching style. He could play like 3 really nice beats.
Okay.
Like,
That's a
I think
place to start.
he still knows those 3 beats too, I think. But it wasn't really about learning the fundamental of it. He'd just sit down and be like, this is how it goes. Even learning piano, like he wouldn't just show me like a C chord. He'd show me a chord that has 5 fingers in it, and this whole like thing. He's like, all right, learn that. And then when you learn that, I'll teach you something else. That makes sense to me.
He's your dad, and he's a good dad. And he could see that this is a good way for you to learn. And maybe it's just the way that Craig teaches too, but it seemed like it was a good match because you learned. I mean, you did,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I mean, and he probably knew I was, at that point, he's like, he's probably going to figure this out
Yeah.
pretty
Yeah, you were
quick.
good enough.
So it's going to be a little bit more challenging. And he's good at figuring out what needs to happen. I remember him throwing the big plastic bat, with the big barrel and
Yeah.
tossing the little ball at me. And I was set up right-handed, and I was just striking out every time. And I'm sure he's like, wow, here we go.
Right.
But he's like, right, go on the other side, go the other way. It's like switch your hands around, and then I started just hitting the ball every time. So he's like, oh, okay, well, you're left-handed on that. So, and ever since that, I just never went to the other side of the plate.
You stayed on the left.
Yeah,
Not a bad place to
yeah.
be.
So, I've always been curious about it, and I guess they say runs in the family or whatever it is, but it's something I love to do, and I certainly didn't see it evolving like it has, and I still feel like it was not long ago I moved to Tennessee with a dream of doing music for a living, and I'm still here
And you're
doing it.
doing it, and
So,
you've really lived that dream in a way that a lot of musicians don't get to, because a lot of them
mhm,
have that dream, and you were able to really, with luck and your skill, and
yeah.
all the other things that go
Mhm.
together, you're able to really have a lot. You're able to have a lot of success. Um, so when you were in high school and you were getting more and more proficient on the drums, did you play any groups with your dad or with high school friends?
Yeah, it was probably approaching high school where I started playing with the folks who were playing in bands and everything like that. And Dad was always having me sit in, at the Rubenstein or something like that.
Yep. Yep.
He'd have his tab, and I'd go get a Coke, and Steve would be playing drums, and
Right.
and you just go and play a groove or something like that. But over and back, all those years of kind of sitting in and doing that, those were really my first gigging years. Like
Yep.
when I moved to Tennessee, I gigged as a drummer for, I don't know, probably a year and a half or two, and then the drums started taking a back seat. But then my first paying gig on drums, was the gig I have now with Kev. So that was
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
was in,
Keb people. Yep. Yep.
yeah.
Awesome. We will put that on pause and move to the first
Mhm.
song. And this is from the album we mentioned already, which is self-titled Casey Wasner. You can get this on Spotify, listen to it on Spotify. Where can you buy it?
You can get it on iTunes.
All
I
right.
think
So
I
this,
might have a hard copy somewhere in a closet
right.
somewhere.
I was wondering if you had any, like we have, 500 of about six different albums in our attic.
Yeah.
All right, so
Yep.
this song is from Casey Wasner, the album called Casey Wasner, and it's called She. Why don't you tell us a little bit of the origin story or the inception of this song, where your ideas for it came from?
Yeah, so she was pivotal for me because I had been writing a lot of songs, and Nashville being a songwriter town, I was writing songs that for Rascal Flatts or something like this, or you were targeting, I want to get a cut. This sounds like this artist and that artist. So I was kind of in that bowl of where you get together and kind of target a style. Just try to write a good song that somebody'd be interested in putting it on their album and going down that whole path. But
Right.
within doing that, these weren't songs that were generally, they weren't necessarily like something I wanted to project as who I am, but
So, okay, you're kind
but
of like looking for different formulas for different,
yeah,
perhaps, and yeah,
yeah,
right,
yeah, it
and that
could
has a
be.
different approaching it that way. I would think has a different feel than I'm writing this because it's coming out of me.
Yes, yes, exactly. And that's a lot about how Nashville works. So natural writing, songwriting, whatever's happening now, that's what everybody's writing. And then somebody's going to come and shake it up, and they're going to have a new sound, and everybody's going to start writing like that. So
Got it.
I can't blame them. I know a bunch of guys that are really good at it, and they have some of the best songs out there for us to listen to year after year. But so when I wrote it was the first time I felt like, hey, this kind of feels like I like playing this one. This one has nothing to do with Nashville. This was kind of a happy accident for me. And that's when the wheel started spinning. It's like, I think I want to put out some music that feels like what I like to do on the side. it's like my side gig of writing, you know. So
Yeah.
I played everything on it, and this is
What?
one of, yeah, because that's kind of I didn't have money I didn't know anybody either. So,
I mean, it's
well,
amazing that you can do it, that you have the chops to play bass. What's all on this song? Bass and guitar.
there's there's bass, guitars, yeah, drums, some Wurlitzer and some B3. And oh, there's some horns on it, so I had some horns written for it. I didn't play the horns.
Okay. Okay.
So
Got it.
this was just me being resourceful with my time, making demos. As you know, I'd been writing these songs, and you got to make demos, and you make simple demos for people to listen to. And this was just kind of like, I took it to the next place. And, you know, instead of just kind of whipping something up, I was thinking about the parts, and that turned into, well, I should maybe revisit some of these other songs and think about that. And I built them up and had a lot of guests on the record, but the majority of the record, I tried, you know, I played everything I could. And the sound of it is because of that. This is just like piece by piece, literally piece by piece. Start with the end goal, and then start with a click and a guitar and a vocal, and just
Away you go.
start redoing it until it starts feeling good. So this is what this song really turned a corner for me, because it's the first one people are like, oh wow, I dig this. This is really cool. And it was me. You know?
And I dig it. And it's really cool. And it's very funky. And I have to ask this because the title is She. Is there a specific person that you had in mind?
Not a specific person. The co-writer on this, Todd, we might have a little bit of a version that might hit like a real personal level, but we kind of exploit that and blow it way out of proportion a little bit, and just because, you know, I if it hits too close to home for me, I don't know, I get weird up there if I've got to sing it. You know, it's like, oh geez, this one's a little too close to home. You can kind of fill in the blanks on your own. And as a listener, I love doing that to songs that I don't know the backstory. There's some songs I wish I didn't know the backstory of. But
Sure. You mentioned a co-writer. What's their name?
Todd Otwell. Funny thing about She is I played a gig down here, and we had opened for John Oates,
Wow.
and, you know, Hall and Oates, and
Yep.
and a lot of the stuff I write is really in that. I love the 70s, you know, that throwback sound. It's just something that's a part of me. And he saw that it's the last song we played, and he's like, what was that? Was that your song? You know, and
That's
he's
exciting.
like, that's the kind of song that, you know, when we were cutting our records, that's the kind of song that's on the table for us to put. In fact, that would probably have been on one of our records, you know. It's like we would have cut that thing. So
You're like, well, you still could.
yeah,
Still
yeah,
could.
exactly. It's nice to hear that stuff like that even though the song like this has no business on any country record, but it's fun to get a little bit of validation from somebody that values it in a different way,
Right.
and gives you the prop. So it's like, if I always think, like, if I were to have a hit, you know, this would be the one, you know, just because John said it could have. It could have been.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think that's a
So,
perfect setup. Let's take a listen to She, written by my guest today, Casey Wasner, and his writing partner, Todd Otwell. Here it is.
She, she's calling me again. How long? How long's it been? Since the last time we talked. She's a good step in the way that I walk. Yeah. She said, let's take it slow. But she's the one burning up my phone. Yeah. She's calling me again. How long? How long's it been? Yeah. Actually, I'm infatuated with her so cool for me to learn that I'm not the only one to think that something good's begun. And she's calling me again. She's calling me again. How long's it been? Oh, yes, she is. She's calling me again. Oh, how long? How long has it been? Yeah.
This is Musician Talk, and I am your host, Pauline Jennings. Today, my guest is Casey Wasner, and you just heard She, a song on his first album called Casey Wasner, and he wrote it with his writing partner, Todd Otwell. Yeah, like I said, this song is very, very funky. The horns are so cool, and there's something that you're doing on the hi-hat that's really, really unique and interesting. And the laugh in there, that little laugh, you sound just very cool. And by the way, oh my God, you can sing.
Thank you.
Man, yeah, you got that gene too. You certainly did. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. You know, it's a lot of learning for me to get the singing thing figured out. But I still, you know, if I record tomorrow, I'm wondering, you know, whether it's quite there yet. You know, it's
Right.
an interesting instrument for sure.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's go back to your journey. Now, you mentioned that you play drums, which is, you know, not something you should just mention in passing. So let's highlight it that you are the drummer for Keb Mo, which is just amazing. So, how did you get that gig? Did you have to audition? How'd that come about?
We were kind of talking about it earlier, but when I made my record, he wanted to hear it, you know, and I was working with him at that time, and he's like, "How'd you do this?" You know, and so I explained what I did, and it was one piece at a time. He's like, "I need help," you know. So
Wow.
he moved to Franklin, where I live, it's just south of Nashville, and I started hanging out with him, and I showed him kind of how I did it, and explained like my kind of piece by piece, build the house kind of thing, and he's like, "I want to try that out," you know. So we got together at his studio. I said, "Well, just go in there and sing the song, and don't worry about it being that good, you know. Just sing it down, and then we're gonna have you play guitar to that, and then I'm gonna have you sing to that guitar, and then we're just gonna flip flop until you're just kind of having fun with it, and then we're gonna add a little kick drum and snare and hi-hat, and you're gonna play a little bass lick on it." And all of a sudden we had this thing that felt amazing, and it felt just like Keb, because Keb can play all the instruments too, and we're all a master of none, but you can make things feel good, and you can choose which notes, what you play is more important than kind of just ripping, you know, just being super, super complex. It's about what you choose to play. So anyway, me and Kev are doing this thing. I end up co-producing the record with him. It's called Blues Americana. We started it in 2012, 13. And I'm touring with him as a guitar tech and studio dude. And he's like, why don't you play drums? And, you know, I was like, I'm good. I'm good. You know, you know, I like where I'm at.
Good. I'll stay right here behind the scenes.
So yeah, exactly. And it started where I would go and play with him a little bit, and it turned into being the full drummer dude. And I've learned a lot from him. And
I bet.
He's particular, and you know, and the sensibilities I had going into the gig I couldn't really use, but I gained all these other ones from how he hears music.
Can you explain that a little bit more? Like what sensibilities did you let go of, and what new ones did you bring in?
Like where you would think that you need to fill and hit tom drums, it was like, don't do that at all. Or where you think you need to hit a crash cymbal, like don't do that. And where you think an outro needs lots of ride cymbal, it's like, don't do that. So, and that was me. I was just like, yeah, whoa, it's exciting, you know,
Right.
and people are playing, and you know, it's just big solos. It's, you know, so I learned a lot about, you know, the intricacies of making music exciting without having to be too excited doing it at the same time, if that makes any sense.
It does. It does. And I love that he has a drummer that he's teaching. You know, that I mean, that sounds like a great guy.
Oh yeah, and he's always got his viewpoints on. I've seen the best players in the world come on stage with him, and he's like, in so many words, he's basically, you know, don't do that.
I was just gonna say the same thing. Casey, don't do that.
Yeah, exactly. So we've got a good relationship going, and I can tell. He doesn't have to tell me not to do it anymore. He can just look at me. He's like, okay, I know what you're saying. I know what you're about to say.
Yeah. He probably doesn't even look at you. He probably needs to just move his shoulder a little bit.
Yeah.
I got picking up what you're saying.
Yeah. So it's fun. Having that understanding is within any band is great. And I'm happy to be out there. So that's how I got to be playing drums with them.
Awesome.
Here I am, still out here.
The one thing I am curious about that I do want to touch on is you said I was hanging out with Kebmo when you made that album. That's the first nut to crack when you're trying to make it, right? Is meeting these kind of people.
Okay.
So how do you do that?
So I started going on the road as a technician for bands in 2006 or so. I was 25, something like that. And I was working, and I got the opportunity for my uncle Rick Wheeler. So Lori's husband.
Lori Wasner,
Yep.
Okay.
She's gonna be there at Wazaroo.
Yay.
Yeah. So he brought me out on the road, and I was like setting up drums.
He was a guitar tech for Larry Carlton?
Yes. Larry Carlton, Robin Ford, and
wow.
And boy, now I mean he's always hanging with all those cats, like the big dogs. But anyway, he brought me out there, and I'm like, just like, oh my gosh, amazing. You know, I hadn't been in a plane much at that point in my life, but my first gig was like in Spain somewhere by myself, you know, and I like the first thing is like you get lost in the, you know, 5 terminals. And that was with Larry Carlton then. So when Kev moved to town, he was looking for a local crew. He moved out from Los Angeles, and my name was put in the hat via Rick. And I got a call from, this is true story. I got a call from their production manager, and they're like, we'd like you to do this. And, you know, do you have any experience in this and that? And I'm like, oh no, I don't do any of that. I got a cable and a tuner. Like, you know, you just
I'll tune your guitar.
Yeah, if you want me to tune your guitar and hand it off, I can do that. I can set up the keyboard. I don't care. And I was happy where I was at, you know, with Larry and Robin. And I was a huge fan of Kevin Mo, by the way. I grew up listening to Larry and Robin when I was 11, 12 years old.
Yeah.
It's wild how the universe has kicked in here, because I mean, those were huge influences. Kevin Mo, the same thing. listening
Wow.
and playing drums to all these records,
Oh,
which is
Casey,
just
that's so
wild.
cool.
I think about it all the time. It's like, how does this work? How does
Yeah.
that work? So they call me back weeks later and they're like, well, we want you to do the gig. We feel like you're the only guy that didn't lie to us, like about your abilities, which is basically not guitar tech abilities. And I don't know, we hit it off right away, and that's how it happened with
That's a
getting
great
with Kevin.
story. I love
Yeah,
that you were completely honest, which you would be, of course, being raised by your parents. You would just say it the way it is. This is what it is. I
yeah,
could do this for you, and I'll do it really well, but this is what I could do. And
yeah,
they appreciated that. How wonderful. Oh, that's a great
yeah.
story.
Lucky, just
Right. It's luck and it's who you know, but really mostly it's talent because you're not going to stay in those gigs and you're not going to move forward unless you have that. The other things get you maybe your foot in the door and then you got to do the
yeah,
rest. And you're able to do
yeah,
the rest because you got the
yeah,
talent. So
yeah,
awesome.
yeah,
All right, so you are working on a new album and we're going to get a
yeah.
little preview of that album by hearing one of the songs on there called Perfect Day. So could you just set that up for me a little bit
Sure,
where this song came from?
sure. This is just a fun tune. It's a blues song. It's a shuffle. This next record is going to be a little different than my first one, even though some of the songs going on it were in the hat for my first record. But so they're old, but that doesn't matter.
No.
So years and years and years go by. I develop a whole bunch of friendships and play more gigs and meet more players in town. And I decide like, all right, I don't really want to like DIY this thing. So I'm just going to get all my buddies involved. And so I got a core group, and then from there I added, I had, lots of guests come in. There's songs that have four piano players on the song itself,
Wow.
it's kind of thing, and horns and multiple guitars and layers and layers and layers of stuff. So it's a little bit different sounding, but at the same time, um, still feels like me. And I started it in 2016, and so here we are, 2024. I'm on the same track as I was with my first record.
The 9-year
So
album.
yeah, exactly. But I still like it when I pull it up. So that's a
Yeah.
sign. That's a sign. So I'm a sucker for just a simple song that makes you feel good. You don't have to like dig in and hear what the lyrics are. You can just turn it on and clean your house. And
And
so
that's exactly what happened to me when I listened to it. I mean, okay, I did not clean the house, excuse me. Not
okay.
exactly.
Uh,
But I just smiled to the whole thing. It's a feel good groove and the words and everything is you hit the mark, that's for sure. So do you know everybody that's playing on this? If there was so many
yeah.
musicians, could you pull them out?
So the core group is on this, which is Terrence Clark on drums, Anton Nesbitt on bass. I'm playing guitar, the rhythm guitar. Mike Hicks is playing Rhodes. I've
Mm.
got Ricky Peterson on B3, who's a Minneapolis guy.
Yeah, he sure is. Wow.
Um, uh, I got my dad Craig on the piano.
And he's a
Yep,
Northfield guy, and
he's
wow.
he's a Northfield cat. Larry Carlton's playing the guitar solo, and he's
Wow.
kind of riffs through the whole thing. So me and him are kind of going back and forth. You could tell which one's him and me because it's obvious. Um, uh, and then there's horns on this. I've got Tyler Summers playing tenor and Barry Green playing trombone. I think that's it. I'm singing and doing the background vocals. So it was fun to sit back and with the evolution of making records for everybody else. And when I made my record, it was the only record I had made, the first record. And so fast forward to this, and I've probably helped with 100 records, between. So a lot of evolution in the sound of this one and the production of it, but it's still at the end of the day, we're in the happy business. I just want to smile when I listen to something.
If it's not clear for those of you out there, um, Casey does a ton of work engineering, and in fact, that's how you won what you won your Grammy for was the engineering, if I understand it correctly, on
Mm-hmm.
Taj
Ta-
Mahal. Yeah.
Taj Mahal. It's a combination. It's Keb Mo and Taj Mahal, together.
Incredible. It's just another thing that you are really an expert at, and it's so appreciated. And so when you're talking about all this engineering that you've done, not on your own albums, but for everybody else, because everybody wants you to do that because you're so good at it. Let's take a listen to this bluesy tune called Perfect Day, and which is going to be on Casey Wasner's next album. Here it is.
I think I just live to see the perfect day. Won't that sun chase away the clouds that rolled in our way? Seaside stroll and sunset dinner, the evening count the stars together. Yes, I think I just live to see the perfect day. Oh, I just stumbled into my new favorite dance. Two left feet found the rhythm when you grab my hand. Felt the big band that was playing, bodies shuffling and shaking. I'm so glad I stumbled into my new favorite day. That's now my brand new favorite song. Oh. Found the groove and I couldn't help but sing along. I smiled the whole time it was playing. You moved and closed as dawn was breaking. Yes, I think I just live to see the perfect day. Whoa. Yes,
This is Pauline Jennings, and you're listening to Musician Talk. My guest today, I'm so honored to say, is Casey Wasner, and he is working on a new album. And this song that you just heard, called Perfect Day, is going to be on that new album. Thank you for that song. I love it. I love the harmonies, and I do love the guitar licks. I had that written down too. Just little tasty
Just
things
little stuff.
all throughout, right? You just
Yeah,
go,
that's right.
oh yeah, I love that.
Mhm.
And the piano too. Both just have
Yes.
these little tasty things that they're adding all over the
Yeah.
place. And the Hammond, God, that always adds so much, I think. It's a little sexy,
Yeah,
but in a
sure.
bluesy, sexy way.
Yes.
All right. So, best gig, worst gig, we're to that portion of the interview. And what do you have for me? I'm sure that you've had many great gigs and probably a couple crappy ones, but what do you got for
Well,
us?
yeah, they've kind of evolved over the years what best gig is, and
Right.
lately it's the longer I'm on the road, the best gigs are how the backstage functions and how good the food is. we walk out there, from the stage on, it can be kind of the same thing, but there's
Sure.
always good moments, and it's hard to kind of sift through which ones are better than the others. But I do appreciate a great venue. So probably my best gig happened not too long ago. We played at Crossroads, Eric Clapton's Crossroads out there in LA, Staples Center or whatever that huge place is. And Taj Mahal sat in with us, and I learned, I got to play with him and learn his tune and sing backgrounds with him on the drums. And I just thought to myself, we had never done it together. So that was like the first time we did that. And I know Taj a bit from making those records, but I just kind of had to pinch myself that this was happening.
You say you felt like you needed to pinch yourself. I bet you've had quite a few moments like that. The big first stage, the going on TV, all those first, yeah. Do you have a worst gig?
I don't know if it was my worst or not, but it sure is an imprint because it was one of the first gigs I played when I moved to Nashville. And I was in a cover band. It was a blues gig, and we played it in a mall. Just imagine like the atrium or whatever it is, but we were inside the store, and it was a tip gig. And this place was like no man's land on a Monday or something like that. And I think the guy, he handed out $1 bill to each person in the band. And I'm there and we're just busting our butt. And I remember asking for 4 quarters, from the person there. And there was a
You smart ass.
there was a gumball machine, in the store. So I got 4 gumballs and gave them to the band. And, we all had a gumball, so. But it was great. We all still had a great time, and it wasn't necessarily the worst gig, but
being in a mall on a Monday in a store, just without even the $1 bit, that just doesn't sound very fun.
It's not fun. It's not fun, and it's a gig where it's like I don't want to do this
ever again.
I don't want to do this. Yeah. So, and we need all those worst case scenarios to kind of improve the next, to avoid the next one or whatever it is. But we made the most of it. There's plenty of war stories out there that I'll save you from.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. And thank you so much for being on the show. I'm so pleased to talk to you. And I'm really excited to see you at the Guild on June 28th. For those of you that have tickets, lucky enough to have tickets, yay, because it's all sold out. So you cannot get tickets anymore. I'm looking forward to that's with your Uncle Pete and your dad, Craig. And also there'll be some people sitting in on that, some singers sitting in, probably, maybe, hopefully your aunt, hopefully your cousin, maybe your sister.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's going to be, Pete and Dad doing their thing. And I'm going to kind of play some kick drum and snare drum in the background and just have everybody kind of come up and do their thing. And Wazaroo will be similar to that.
So Wazaroo is a music festival out at the Wasner Barn, and it's going to be music starting at noon till 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock at night. There'll be food and drink, and please bring cash if you could, because that's going to be the easiest. And it's free. The concert's free. So people look for posters for Wazaroo out at the Wasner Barn on June 29th. Other than that, where can people find your music?
That record that we played earlier is on iTunes and Spotify. I'm on social media a little bit, but you can find me there.
Would you ever do a gig just yourself, guitar and voice?
I've done a little bit of that.
Okay.
Little like we call like a songwriter night. You know, they call it.
The reason I bring that up is if you ever want to do it in town, I would love next time you come home, or one of these times when you come home, we just plan to do a little songwriter night at the Guild with you. I would just love that. I know everybody in town would love that too. So
that'd be cool. Yeah, sure. Absolutely.
Awesome. Good. I'm going to hold you to that. Casey, again, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it. And have so much fun while you're home with your whole family. So many of your family home for this big Wazaroo music celebration.
Great. Thanks so much for having me.
All
right.
I'm
looking forward to it.
Take care.
You too.
Many, many thanks to Casey for sharing his journey, music, and insights with us today. Thanks always to the incomparable Wendy Nordquist and to you, dear listener, for listening to Musician Talk on the One, KYMN. Have a fabulous day.